Australia is famous for its wildlife that can take down a human. Blue-ringed octopuses, bull sharks and box jellyfish swim along its coasts. Saltwater crocodiles haunt its river mouths, and the funnel-web spider carries a deadly neurotoxin. While the huntsman spider can cause serious problems, it's the kangaroo that can terrify people with its sheer speed and size. Or consider the inland taipan, an incredibly venomous snake, along with its close relatives living in other parts of the continent. But sometimes the most unexpected animals can also be the most aggressive. If you were wandering through the grasslands of Australia, you might come across a sight like this: a kangaroo wading deep in the water with a look that seems to say, "Come on in, the water's great." If the kangaroo succeeds in luring an opponent into the water, it will brutally drown them with a cruel technique, holding the victim's head underwater until they can no longer fight. Many hunting dogs and dingoes have met a tragic end this way, and in 2022, a man was even killed after suffering severe head injuries. The victim had his jaw broken while trying to rescue his 2 dogs from a large kangaroo. These seemingly cute, grass-eating, hopping animals fill the same ecological niche as deer in other parts of the world, but their level of danger can far exceed those hoofed animals. Statistically, only about 5 people a year seek medical attention after a kangaroo encounter, and it's extremely rare for one to kill a person. But they are clearly capable of it. That's because fighting for dominance in the kangaroo world is a regular occurrence, and it's like the animal kingdom's version of MMA. Boxing, kicking, and grappling are all used to take down an opponent. A fight often begins with one male punching another in the face, after which they both stand tall, lean their heads back, and begin to grapple with their arms. The next move is the kick, which can be a devastating blow delivered by massive claws and powerful leg muscles. A kick like this is strong enough to disembowel a person. While punching and kicking, the kangaroos try to wrestle each other to the ground. Finally, when one submits, a winner emerges. Watching a kangaroo fight like this will make you glad you aren't one. Their strength, aggressive behaviour, and strange physiology make these animals a terrifying force. Kangaroos, wallabies, bettongs, and quokkas all belong to the macropod family, a name that means big foot. They originated from tree-dwelling marsupials in Australia's lush tropical forests about 50 million years ago. As the environment changed to a patchier woodland and then became even drier and more open, the macropod family exploded into many different forms. Small rat-like marsupials like the potoroo and bettong came from one lineage, while the larger kangaroos and wallabies came from another. In fact, for a brief period, about 15 million years ago, there was even a species of carnivorous kangaroo that hunted other animals. Marsupials and placental mammals split from a common ancestor over 125 million years ago, and the reproductive strategy of marsupials evolved very differently from our own. Today, there are 6 species of kangaroos across Australia and New Guinea. They're all known for carrying their young in a pouch. A kangaroo gives birth after just 1 month of pregnancy, and its newborn is one of the largest and most developed among marsupials, despite the fact that it's still blind, hairless, barely able to move, and weighs less than a pound. After birth, the baby kangaroo, or joey, crawls into its mother's pouch, where it will spend another 6 months nursing and completing its development. Once out of the pouch, young kangaroos begin to develop the skills that will make them formidable warriors and incredibly efficient jumpers. Based on the fossil record, it seems they evolved their hopping locomotion about 20 million years ago. But it wasn't until much more recently that the fastest of modern kangaroos, the red kangaroo, appeared. It's also the largest kangaroo species, and scientists have studied it for decades because hopping is very rare among vertebrates, used mainly by frogs and small mammals. In 1973, a team of researchers taught red kangaroos to hop on a treadmill while wearing a device to measure their oxygen consumption. In most mammals, the faster they run, the more energy they use. But for kangaroos, the opposite is true. Their energy and oxygen demand is high when they first start hopping, but as they speed up, their aerobic demand strangely levels off. Hopping at 9 miles per hour, 15 kilometers per hour, costs a kangaroo far less energy than a similarly sized mammal moving at the same speed. Kangaroos can comfortably cruise at 12 to 15 miles per hour, 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, for long periods. If they're being chased by a predator and really need to sprint, they can reach speeds of 40 to 43 miles per hour, 65 to 70 kilometers per hour, making them one of the fastest land animals in the world. This speed and energy efficiency is the result of several adaptations. First are their hind limbs, which are twice as long as their front limbs. This gives the kangaroo a powerful base to launch from, essentially using two-legged motion. Then there are the stiff tendons in their ankles and knees, which act like massive rubber bands, storing and releasing energy, so they don't have to rely solely on muscle power. This also contributes to their impressive physique. The skeletal muscle of a red kangaroo makes up about 50% of its total body mass, making it one of the strongest mammals. In most large mammals, like humans and cows, only 35 to 40% of their mass is skeletal muscle. For kangaroos, most of that muscle is concentrated around the pelvis and hind legs, where they need it to generate that spring-loaded jump. Kangaroos also have a high density of mitochondria in their muscles, as well as dense capillaries and a large blood volume. Basically, this means their muscles are supercharged with energy, much like those of a racehorse. Finally, a kangaroo's large tail rotates opposite to its body, acting as a counterbalance to keep it from pitching forward. All these features allow kangaroos to outrun most predators and travel vast distances in search of food. However, when a kangaroo moves slowly, it looks incredibly clumsy. And surprisingly, this slow movement requires more energy. Their walk is called pentapedal locomotion, where the tail is used like a fifth leg. Because moving slowly is so energy intensive, they don't do it often. This means kangaroos have to be a bit more selective about where they get their food, especially since they eat almost exclusively grass. As mentioned before, kangaroos are basically Australia's version of deer. They are herbivores that live in large groups called mobs. But there's a huge difference between kangaroos and other grazers. Kangaroos are not ruminants. For animals that eat tough grasses and leaves, all that fibre is hard to digest. Ruminants like cows, sheep and deer have a 4-chambered stomach and will regurgitate food to chew it a second time, known as chewing their cud. Kangaroos also eat a high-fibre diet, but their stomach only has 2 chambers and they don't chew their cud. The 2 parts of their stomach are a sacciform, pouch-like section in the front and a tubular section in the back. Food moves through this system like it's on a conveyor belt rather than being churned back and forth. Because food takes longer to move through a ruminant's digestive system, they have to eat in smaller bursts, whereas kangaroos can eat more at once, spending up to 10 hours a day foraging. Their food is also a critical source of moisture, allowing them to go for days or even weeks without drinking water as long as they keep eating. A significant difference in digestion between kangaroos and ruminants is how their fermentation process works to extract nutrients from all that fibre-rich grass. Bacteria in their digestive systems help break down the food. For ruminants, the hydrogen gas produced during this process is converted into methane by other bacteria, which the animal then releases by burping or farting. Methane is a greenhouse gas 30 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and 50 to 60% of it comes from agriculture and the digestion of ruminants. Since humans eat a lot of meat, this is a major problem, and scientists have been exploring ways to make livestock produce less of this harmful gas. This is why they study kangaroos, whose digestive fermentation produces very little methane, only about 27% as much as a ruminant. There are a few reasons for this. One is that food moves faster through the kangaroo's digestive tract, which gets rid of some methane-producing bacteria. But other studies have found that kangaroos have a different kind of bacteria in their gut. Fermentation always produces hydrogen gas. But instead of bacteria turning it into methane, kangaroos have bacteria that turn it into acetic acid, which actually helps with muscle development. And this brings us back to the incredible strength of the kangaroo. Although different species vary in size, they are all quite large. Male red kangaroos are the biggest of all. They can grow to an enormous size, with a mature male weighing nearly 200 pounds, 90 kilograms, and standing over 6.5 feet tall, 2 meters, making them significantly larger than the average person. From a young age, all kangaroos build their muscles by learning to fight. Joeys regularly play fight with their mothers, learning how to use their limbs. This play continues throughout a kangaroo's life, with adult males often engaging in ritualized sparring matches where the goal isn't to hurt each other but to hone their skills. Even females will play fight, though less frequently. However, things turn violent when kangaroos are competing for something, like access to water or mating rights with females. Scientists have found that different species have different fighting styles. Smaller species won't grapple as often and are more likely to kick. These kicks can be so damaging that the males have evolved hard skin shields on their abdomens to avoid being disemboweled. For larger species like the red kangaroo, the main form of combat is grappling with their head, neck and shoulders, with the goal of throwing their opponent to the ground by any means necessary. Kangaroos will also sometimes fight back against predators like dingoes, though they usually prefer to hop away to escape. And in some cases, as we mentioned earlier, they will even go to the nearest waterhole and drown any animal that gets too close. This is actually a defensive move, as it's trying to protect itself from being attacked. But it's a strategy that can backfire if the water is too shallow or too deep. In those situations, the kangaroo doesn't have much of an advantage and can easily be bitten or drown itself. Although kangaroos seem built primarily for fighting and fleeing, their muscles also appear to give them an advantage with the ladies. Male kangaroos will sometimes strike poses to flex their muscles, showing off to females and proving they're tough enough to handle any rivals. But those big muscles come at a cost. Large adult males are more likely to die during droughts and other periods of environmental stress, possibly because their bodies require more energy to maintain. Clearly, there are downsides to being incredibly muscular, but so far it's a strategy that has worked for kangaroos, especially considering the larger species are less threatened today than smaller marsupials. Just remember, the next time you see one in the wild, it's best to keep your distance. If you're really determined to get up close and personal with a marsupial, you're probably better off finding yourself a wallaby. And if you ever had the chance to meet a kangaroo in the water, what would you do? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.